Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. If you follow basketball, you know Chilltown Hoops.
So this is really good right here. Yes, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world. We are in effect. Yes, we are. Talk pro basketball. You want to talk pro basketball? Let's talk pro basketball. And I'm going to shout out all of my sponsors and my fans and all the people that support Chilltown Hoops. And I do what I can to give you the content that I give you. And I will continuously, myself and my man Tony Tone, not just me, my man Tony Tone, he's a large contributor in this. This is not just me, but I will keep bringing you content. My man Tony Tone will keep producing what he produces, and we'll keep giving it to you. So in the meantime and in between time, what do we have going on? We have the in-season tournament championship game. Now, originally, I was not a fan of the in-season tournament. You couldn't really sell it to me. I thought that it was a money grab. I was not a fan of it in the least bit. I just thought it was all fluff. I just didn't think that it was something that I would be interested in. That I would be interested in doing. I wouldn't be at all. And the fact that this thing has turned out the way it's turned out speaks volumes for what I know, which is clearly nothing. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, I watched the in-season tournament, and the competition level in the in-season tournament has been fantastic. Not just this year, last year. Last year was when I got on board, right? Last year was when I got on board, and then seeing it this year and how much more the competition has gotten better, and in addition to the competition getting better, teams have gotten better. It's just so much better. And I think it's a great interlude for the rest of the season. What's up, Mac? I think it's a great interlude for the rest of the season because it gives us something to look forward to. A lot of these games in the in-season tournament are previews for the playoffs. We just got a taste of it. We just got a taste of it on Saturday night with Oklahoma City and Houston. That's a playoff preview. That is a playoff that those are two teams that we could see in probably the semifinals in the Western Conference. And we already seen a couple of weeks ago when they got after it, and it did get spicy. Yep. It got spicy and it got edgy. Sure. And it got a little tricky, and I liked it. Yes, it did. And then you saw two of the best defenses in the league go at it. Right? We saw two of the best defensive teams in the league go at it. In the process of seeing those two teams go at it, we saw what that defense could look like for the rest of the season and what it could look like going into the playoffs. Now, I hear people telling me that Oklahoma City, who I still think is a year away from winning it, I don't think they're there yet. I think they're a year away from winning it. I still hear people telling me, how much better is this team going to be defensively when they get Chet back? Well, they already touted as the best defensive team in history. So if they get Chet back, are they going to be better? I don't think you could be best. I don't think you could be better than the best ever. I just think they'd be different. So now they got different rim protection. Now they got a better roamer. They got a better rebounder. They got a better shot blocker. So they're going to be different in that way. So the perimeter defense that they have, which is what they rely on heavily, they won't have to rely on that as much. But what it will do is it'll have those guys more than not taking more chances on the perimeter, because I got a rim protector like that behind me. So it's pretty hard not to take chances when I got somebody like that behind me cleaning up my mess. When I watched that Oklahoma City game, I saw two teams that are on their ascension. That's what I saw. I saw a Houston Rockets team who They have some great rotation players, not just great rotation players, but they got really good starters in Sengun and Jalen Green. I think Jalen Green, one of his biggest problems, one of Jalen Green's biggest problems is his ability to score in a multitude of ways. I don't think he slashes enough to the basket. I don't think he gets a lot of easy baskets. I don't think his defense creates enough offense for him. And I think that's one of the main reasons why. I think that's one of the main reasons why he kind of struggles the way he does. And watching him against Oklahoma City was actually that. As a scorer, you want to see the ball go in the basket. Even if you're not shooting it well, you want to see the ball go in the basket on some level. All right, well, how do we do that? I got to get a layup, get a steal, and get an open floor dunk. That'll get me going. A stop and pop in transition. If I can get something like that going, then what that tells me immediately is that, okay, I'm back in business. If I can get something like that going. Well, fast forward to Saturday, or rewind back to Saturday when that wasn't going on. that just was not going on. Jalen Green was not getting in. He was not getting in to the teeth of the defense. He was not slashing to the basket. He did not create any offense with his defense. He didn't do any of that. So I think that if he can clean that up, I think he's a much better player than people are giving him credit for. What up, Rich? How you doing, brother? I think he's a much better player than people give him credit for. And I think if he did that, he would show that. As good as this team is defensively, and a lot of their offense they create on defense because their offense isn't very good. But with that, what up, Will? With that, they are able to create some offense. I like how they went to Sengun early. He is a little gangly on the box. He does seem to be a little loose, which, you know, a big guy like Hartenstein can do that. But I feel like that handle can get tighter. I think that he could, more than anything, in addition to his handle, I think that he could be a better decision maker. But when you playing against a great defense like what Oklahoma City has, they'll do that to you. They'll 100% force you into turnovers, make you make mistakes that you wouldn't normally make if you were playing against a different team and you were playing against a lesser team defensively. So I saw untimely turnovers. I saw Sengun not taking care of the basketball the way he could have. I thought he could have done a better job in taking care of the basketball. I thought they all could have done a better job in taking care of the basketball. Sengun, Jalen Green. I thought they got some real good quality minutes from Dillon Brooks. I'm in the minority because I'm a big fan of Dillon Brooks, minus the antics. But I'm a big fan of Dillon Brooks off the strength that what he brings to the table on the defensive end, you're not going to find that with a lot of other teams in the league. I think that when I ran down the teams, when I looked at the teams in the league, and when I looked at the standings and I looked at the playoff teams, I'm thinking to myself, who isn't Dillon Brooks starting for? Like if I'm Milwaukee, I'm calling up Houston and I'm asking for Dillon Brooks. I'm calling up Milwaukee and if I'm Milwaukee, I'm calling up Houston and I'm asking for Dillon Brooks. Because I think he's the perimeter defender that we need. You didn't call up and ask for Herb Jones. You didn't call and ask for Thibault. You didn't call and ask for Dyson Daniels or any of those other guys. You didn't call and ask for them. So do yourself a favor. Call up Houston and ask for Dillon Brooks. I'm a big Dillon Brooks fan. Despite the antics, I like how he makes things difficult on guys. And I felt like he made it really difficult. on SGA. Really difficult on him. And despite the number that you see with SGA, he got busy at 32. And Dillon Brooks forced him into a lot of tough shots. Not only did Dillon Brooks force him into a lot of tough shots, he had some bad shots credited from Dillon Brooks playing the defense that he plays. So I thought that their rotation, I thought not Oklahoma City, I thought Houston's rotation was good. I just think that the difference in that game was their offense. And their defense ultimately wore down. That was the difference in the game. Their defense ultimately wore down. Shai was able to get to the free throw line. They ended up making shots, particularly at the long ball line, and Houston couldn't match them offensively. Defensively, I thought they did a really good job on them. Offensively, they just couldn't match them. J-Dub got going. Oklahoma City does a lot to force the action. They do a lot to force the action. So with that, what I mean when I say that they do a lot to force the action, they do a lot to force the action on defense, which creates offense for them, which makes them speed the game up. In addition to them speeding up the game, they get easy transition buckets. And I like that about them. I really like that about them. I thought Dillon Brooks made Shai uncomfortable early, but then Shai got into a rhythm and he was able to get going. I really like this kid, Cason Wallace, man, because he competes on the defensive end. Not only does he compete on the defensive end, he can knock down open shots. Now, I'm hearing a lot of people tell me that Oklahoma City is not going to be able to pay all of their guys. Actually, they are. That's what this new collective bargaining agreement is about. You don't have to concern yourself with stars teaming up like they did in the past because of the apron and the second apron and how much it cripples teams. And now teams can take more advantage of their homegrown talent. And in addition to them taking advantage of their homegrown talent, they can pay their homegrown talent because of the bird rights. So I think that we're going to see teams stay together longer than we have in the past. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be some luck that needs to be involved in this. That's what happened with the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry got hurt. So with Steph Curry getting hurt, you were able to get him on the cheap. You got Draymond on the cheap as a second-round pick. You got Clay later on. You paid him. You didn't have to pay him right away. Right? You were able to keep the money at a reasonable rate. And then eventually you had to pay guys. And they were able to keep this crew together. They were. But with that, right? With that being said, I think with this new CBA, you're going to see teams like more homegrown teams like Oklahoma City, Houston. You're going to see more teams like that. And I like that. Teams like Memphis who, they had some overhaul. They got Ja back. They got Jaren Jackson back. They got Desmond Bane back. They lose Dillon Brooks. They replace him with G.G. Jackson, who will be back in the lineup really soon. They lose Steven Adams. They replace him with Zach Edey. So they have some pieces that they're able to hold on to. I think that's what we're going to see more in the future. So the first game in the in-season tournament between Atlanta and Milwaukee, if I'm being honest with you, I think we got a lot of teams in the league that have a guy who they just can't afford to lose. Like teams like Boston, Cleveland, Houston, Oklahoma City, they can still keep their head above water if they end up losing a major. Like if Oklahoma City lost Shai or they lost Chet, you see what's going on with them after they lose Chet. I mean, they're still at the top of the Western Conference. They can afford to lose him. If Boston lost Jaylen Brown, they could afford to lose him. Atlanta can't afford to lose Trae Young. They don't have anything like that on their crew. Nothing. They don't have anything of the sort. I'm watching that game against Milwaukee, and this might be a crew, right? This might be a crew in Atlanta that is solely reliant on Trae to be their distributor, to be their playmaker, to be a secondary scorer. A lot of their offense comes from Trae creating offense for them, kind of like what Luka does in Dallas, but not to that extent. Because I feel like now with Luka, they've gotten so much better. So Luka doesn't have to do as much. But with Trey, like Jalen Johnson, Jalen Johnson is a big time transition player. And I'm watching that game and they want to play fast. And with them being able to play fast, right? With them being able to play fast, that's Trey getting these guys open shots because Trey is looking up the floor. Trey is handling the basketball. Trey is the one that's setting the table for Dyson Daniels. Clinton Capella cannot get his own shot without Trae Young. He can't do it. So because of that, they can't afford to lose anybody like Trey. Milwaukee, on the other hand, could they afford to lose Giannis? I mean, that's a heavy load for Dame, a heavy one for Dame to have to carry if they were to lose Giannis. Luckily, they don't have to find that out, but Giannis is just so good at getting downhill, at creating offense for a number of different people. He's just so good at that if they lost Dame, they could still run the offense through Giannis with a supplementary point guard who probably couldn't score as much. Because I'm watching that game, and Giannis is the best transition player in the game. When he snatches that thing off the glass and he goes, it's pretty impossible once he gets ahead of steam. It's impossible to deal with him. It is virtually impossible to deal with him. So with that being said, Trey needed to be on the floor as much as he was on the floor, but unfortunately he can't play the whole game because he'd be out of gas if he had to play the whole game. Now, I thought that Atlanta, for all intents and purposes, I thought that they did everything that they could to stay in that game. I just feel like Giannis was just too much. And I think that that's going to be what's going on in Oklahoma City. Because when they play against Oklahoma City, I'm having a difficult time with the logic that they're just going to slow Giannis down. I can't see that. I can't see that happening. And the reason why I can't see that happening is because they don't have enough size to slow Giannis down. With Casey Wallace and J-Dub and Wiggins. I mean, they play J-Dub at the 5. They don't have enough offense to slow down. They don't have enough defense. They don't have enough size to slow down Giannis. Just like Atlanta didn't have enough size. The size that they had, it wasn't enough to slow Giannis down. It just wasn't. Now, I think Shai has his hands full with Dame, because I felt like Dame did a really good job in exploiting the holes in Atlanta's defense. And one of the major holes in Atlanta's defense, one of their major holes in their defense is Trey. He's one of the major holes in their defense. Off the strength that, one, he's small. 2, his ability to defend and recover once he gets beat is compromised off the strength that he's small. Right? So when I see Dame getting into the teeth of the defense against Atlanta and there's really nothing that Trae Young can do about it, I'm thinking to myself, well, how is Oklahoma City going to slow down Trae? Because he's always feasted on them. He used to bust Russ' ass. He used to give Russ the business. So, with that, right, with that being said, I feel like they match Oklahoma City's toughness. I think that they have a front line that can handle, right? I think they have a front line that they can handle. Atlas, yes, he did. What are you talking about? Yes, he did guard him. I was watching the game. I don't know if you weren't watching the game, but yes, he did. You telling me that not one time throughout the course of that game, Trae Young wasn't on Damian Lillard? Is that what you're saying? So tell us all here, because I can tell you right now, it was in the first quarter. He got switched on him. In the second quarter, he consistently covered him. In the second quarter, he got caught on switches with him. Dyson Daniels was matched up on Dame, but they mismatch hunted and they went after Trae Young, and he was covering Dame in the second quarter and in the first quarter. 100% of that. So the point that I'm making is when he was dealing with when Dyson Daniels, not Dyson Daniels, I'm sorry, when Trae Young was dealing with him, right? When Trae Young was dealing with him, he had a difficult time. So that's that's that. I just I look at Oklahoma City, and I look at who Oklahoma City has in terms of their guards: Case and Wallace, SGA, Lou Dort. So these guys are going to have to deal. These guys are going to have to deal with, right? These guys are going to have to deal with Dame as much as possible to slow him down, because when Giannis gets on the floor and Giannis gets going, he's looking for Dame in transition. Oklahoma City is one of the best transition teams in the league, defensive transition teams in the league. 100% he is. So, with that, right? So with that being said, I just think Giannis is going to be too much for Oklahoma City ultimately. I think Giannis is going to be too much for Oklahoma City. And as good as their perimeter defense is, and I think they have the best perimeter defense in the league, but as good as their perimeter defense is, I just don't think they have an answer in slowing down Giannis. And I think that Giannis ultimately is going to be the difference in them winning and losing. Ultimately in them winning and losing. So I'll give you an example, sir. So Atlas wants me to give him an example. So in the first quarter, Dyson Daniels is covering. I remember this vividly. In the first quarter, Dyson Daniels is covering Dame. Dyson Daniels is covering Dame on the left side of the floor. They come down and we get a back screen. We get a back screen on Dame, and then we get a back screen on Dyson Daniels, and then another screen to get Trae. It's the same offense that the Boston Celtics was running. And we get another screen on the top of the key to get Trae Young to guard Damian Lillard. Was he guarding Damian Lillard the entire game? No, he was not. But he was switched onto him on that specific play. I want you to fast forward to the second quarter. In the second quarter, in transition, Trae Young is picking up Damian Lillard. In the second quarter, he picked up Damian Lillard in transition. Dyson Daniels had got caught on the right side of the floor. This was after a shot. So with him doing that, he was matched up on him. So Damian Lillard and Trae Young were matched up on each other throughout the course of that game. It wasn't a lot, but he was matched up on him, and Dame took advantage of Trae Young being matched up on him. So that's that. With that being said, I just feel like Oklahoma City, as good as they are defensively, and they have such a they do such a great job, right? They do such a great job in switching and rotating. They do such a great job at that it's hard, one, to mismatch hunt against them, and two, it's hard to beat them to different spots because they do such a great job in rotating. So when they make a mistake, they make up for it really quickly. So it's hard to put them in precarious situations because they're so good, right? They're so good. So with that, right? So with that, what they're gonna have, what I see Milwaukee doing more than anything is I see Giannis bringing the ball up a lot. I see Giannis bringing the ball up a lot, and I see Giannis really going after Hartenstein. I see Giannis. I mean, that's not anything new that he does anyway, because I feel like he goes after guys anyway. But I really see Hartenstein going after. I really see Hartenstein. I really see Giannis going after Hartenstein, getting him away from the basket, shooting, going after that mid range. So, but I got a super chat really quickly I want to read. This is from Lee Mack. Lee Mack says, "Do you feel the Celtics have more pressure now to win a chip compared to last year? Maybe there's more expectation." I don't think that they have more pressure. No, I don't. I do think it's harder to defend the championship than to win it. I think that's. I think teams who've won it, I think teams who won it in back-to-back season have in back-to-back seasons have proven that it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more difficult to win it again. It's a lot more difficult to defend it than it is to win it. See, when you're the hunted, when you're the hunter, that's what you are. But when teams go after you, like what's going on with Boston right now, it's a lot more difficult to defend it. I'm not sure that there's more pressure on them to do it. I do think that it's going to be more difficult to do it. That's not to say that they can't do it. I do think that they're going to do it. I just think that it's more difficult for them to do it because it's more teams coming after you. Teams aim at you different when you're the champs. So, but back to Oklahoma City. Back to Oklahoma City. I feel like the difference in this game. I feel like the difference in this game is going to be Giannis going after Hartenstein. Giannis playing in the mid-range. If he could get Hartenstein away from the basket, even though Oklahoma City rebounds the way that they do, even though Oklahoma City rebounds the way that they do, even though Oklahoma City defends on the perimeter the way that they do, if I could get Hartenstein away from the basket, I think that's some more opportunities for guys like Bobby Portis, the offensive rebound, Brook Lopez, the offensive rebound, and that can take Hartenstein away because now they're smaller in the paint. And if Giannis is knocking down that mid range just at a respectable rate, I don't mean that Giannis got to knock the mid range down. That I don't think that Giannis has to knock the mid range down like Brian or anybody like that. No, I don't think so. But what I do think is if he can make one or two to get Hartenstein to now respect that shot, I think that that's going to cause a lot of trouble, especially when Oklahoma City goes small. Because now when he makes one or two of those shots, and then you go SGA, Dort, Caruso, J-Dub, Wallace. I'm leaving Giannis in the game. 100%. I'm not taking Giannis out. I am going at if I feel like if I could leave Giannis in the game when they go small, that forces them to do something different. They can't play man-to-man as much. They have to now go into that zone. And then now that's where guys like AJ Green and Dame, Brook Lopez, that's where those guys, right? That I feel like that's where those guys come in and stretch the defense and make things even more difficult for Oklahoma City. So ultimately, I feel like this Oklahoma City team has a shot, but I just don't think that I don't think they got an answer for Giannis in terms of slowing him down more than anything. In terms of slowing down Giannis, because you're not going to stop him because he's so good at getting to the rim. And with him being as good as he is getting to the rim and you being small, I mean, that's a double negative on Oklahoma City. So I think that they can take advantage of that. 100%, I think they can take advantage of that. So I think that Giannis is I think he's too much. I think he'll be too much for this Oklahoma City team. I think that Oklahoma City, as good as they are, I think they'll battle, and I think that they will compete. But this very well can come down to, very much like in the NBA Finals, very much like in the playoffs, my best player is better than your best player. And I think that Giannis, for all intents and purposes, is going to be the best player in this game. And I think he outplays Shai because I feel like he does more than Shai does. So we'll see. We'll definitely see how good Milwaukee is. Now, has Milwaukee turned this whole thing around? I never thought that they would stay at the bottom of the East. I didn't. Looking at what Oklahoma City has. Not Oklahoma City, I'm sorry. Looking at what Milwaukee has with Dame, with Giannis, with Brook Lopez, who is long in the tooth, and I still think that Milwaukee has to upgrade at the 5 spot. With what they have, I still felt like of all the teams that can turn it around, I felt like they can turn it around. And they did turn it around. I mean, they're the 6th seed. I think they're a game and a half out the 3 spot right now, something like that. Milwaukee is. I think they're a game and a half behind the Knicks for the 3 spot. So I feel like this. I feel like this Milwaukee team. I don't think that they can win the NBA championship off the strength that there's a level of defense that you have to play, and I don't think Milwaukee has it on the perimeter. I don't. As good as Giannis is as a defender, he can't make up for that deficiency with the Milwaukee Bucks. He can't do it. But I do think that he's good enough that he can get them deep in the playoffs. I think they're a 2nd-round exit. But I feel like this Oklahoma City matchup, I think it's a prelude for what the playoffs are going to look like. That's why I'm in favor of. That's why I'm in such favor of the in-season tournament now. I wasn't before. I'd be lying to you if I said I was, but I was not. I was not in favor of the in-season tournament, but I am now because, one, the competition level is a lot different. In addition to the competition level being a lot different, it also gives me a prelude to what the playoffs can look like because Oklahoma City, and Houston, I think that these two teams are going to see each other in the playoffs. I think Milwaukee is going to see Atlanta in the playoffs. Atlanta, as of right now, if I'm not mistaken, Atlanta is in the play-in tournament, and I still think that they're I still think that they're a mid team. I've always felt like that, and I still feel like that. They'll go on stretches where they'll go on stretches where they'll win a couple of games, but for the most part, I think they're a middle of the road team. I don't think that there's a team. I don't think that they're a team that we're going to see them at the top of the Eastern Conference or even in the middle of the Eastern Conference, like a 4 or 5 seed. I don't think they're that good. I don't think that they can sustain that. I think they rely a lot on Trey to be not Superman, but he's a big reason why this team goes the way that they do on offense. He's a big reason for that. A huge reason for that. So with that being said, I like this in-season tournament thing because, again, when I see Minnesota going up against the Trailblazers, I mean, Minnesota wouldn't normally lose to the Trailblazers, would they? But I feel like the Trailblazers, I mean, it's the in-season tournament. You're going to get more effort from them. Minnesota and Sacramento. I think that's great because that could be a prelude to the playoffs. Because if the season ended, Minnesota would play Golden State in the play-in tournament, and the Clippers would play the Lakers. The Clippers would play the Lakers, and Minnesota would play Golden State. So they would probably be in the playoffs. Because I think that I think Minnesota would beat Golden State. I do. But if we're talking about a team that has the best shot in this tournament of making a deep run in the playoffs, I think it's Oklahoma City off the strength of their defense. And Eliza, I didn't even, the reason why I didn't address that, because that comment didn't make any sense. Foul baiting. Okay, first of all, Giannis isn't a good free throw shooter. So Giannis doesn't really want to go to the stripe. That's number one. Number two, Giannis is ridiculously physical. So Giannis wants to play like that. He wants the contact. He wants to play through contact. Giannis isn't looking to foul bait so he can get to the free throw line. Giannis wants to play through the bump. Giannis wants to play through the hit so he can get to the rim. Now, if you blow the whistle, you blow the whistle. But Giannis isn't looking to foul bait. So I didn't think it was necessary to even address that comment. I just didn't think it was necessary. There was no reason for me to address that. But anyway, I feel like the in-season tournament has done a lot for the NBA. I'm hearing things like I'm hearing things like the in-season tournament, ratings are down, and because ratings are down, um, fanfare isn't what it used to be, and I don't think that's the case at all. If I'm being honest, no, mm-mm. I don't think that that's going on. No, I don't think that's going on at all. I just think I feel like there's a number of different things that are going on in the league to understand why ratings are down. But I think one of the main reasons why ratings are down is because the NBA makes it difficult to access their games. Ratings weren't down in the 90s or in the 2000s because it was easy to turn on NBC. It was easy to turn on ABC. It was easy to turn on ESPN. Wasn't a thing yet. But it was easy to get to TNT. And on top of that, I still don't think we have a legit star yet. Like a guy. Like we got some guys in the league. I feel like that the league is trying to push, but we don't have James. We don't have Shaq. Right? We don't have that guy. That guy isn't in the league. I feel like the franchise player or the face of the league, I don't think we met him yet. I don't. Mm-mm. I don't think we met him yet. And does that mean that he is coming? I do think so. Yeah. I do think that it's a thing, and I do think that he is going to show, but I just don't think we met him yet. So you've never heard me disrespect Giannis, Kivo. What have you heard me disrespect Giannis? When you say I disrespect Giannis, what do you mean I disrespect Giannis? I think Giannis is the second best player in the world, and I said that on the panel because I think the Milwaukee Bucks are fool's gold because I don't think that they're going to win the NBA championship off the strength of Giannis and that defense that they have. I'm glazing him now, bro. I'm not glazing him. No, I'm speaking facts. Giannis doesn't want to go to the stripe. The Milwaukee Bucks, their perimeter defense isn't very good. You as a Bucks fan, you just want me to talk about Giannis in the way that you talk about Giannis. Giannis is so fantastic. Giannis is awesome, which Giannis is awesome. And I won't argue that. But what I will argue is Giannis does have I won't overlook the fact that Giannis has deficiencies in his game, which can be a problem come playoff time. And when I'm on the show, I talk about that. But I also talk about how good he is too. So, bro, there is no fake love here. I call it how I see it. Giannis has been bounced in the first round of the playoffs twice in the last 2 years. The indictment papers have been written up on Giannis. Have they been issued yet? No, they haven't been. But they have been they've been typed up. They 100% have been typed up. So Giannis has to do something substantial in these playoffs in order for this arrest warrant to have to go away, bro. Anyway, I want to hear from you guys though. That's who I want to hear from. I do want to hear from you guys about the in-season tournament. What up?
Yo, what up, Chill?
What up?
What up? What up? Yeah, the in season tournament it's been good. Um, I want to talk about people complaining about the 3-point shooting though.
Yeah.
Because I disagree with people complaining about it because I think I told you before I don't think teams have to shoot that many threes. Like I do think you do have to shoot a certain amount of threes to be
Yeah.
competitive, but you don't have to shoot like 50 or 60 threes. I feel like it's a number. I think like maybe like 20 to 30 is like a good number. Anything less, or anything too more, I think you're overdoing it. And I think that if that's like for certain teams like the Celtics, that's their style, and they
Mhm.
know how to win that way. But that doesn't mean that other teams should have to try to copy them because they don't have the personnel to do that. So I don't like that people are complaining, saying that the 3-point shooting is ruining the NBA. I think it's good that everybody should have their own style, and maybe somebody needs to find another style to beat that.
But that's the problem, though, Classic. These teams don't have their own style. They're all copycat. That's why people are complaining about it. So you see what the Boston Celtics did and what it translated to. It translated to them winning the NBA championship. So now this is a copycat league, and everybody thinks that in order, not just the Boston Celtics, but the Golden State Warriors won as a jump shooting team. With them winning as a jump shooting team, and then the Boston Celtics winning as a jump shooting team, everybody now thinks that in order for us to be successful, we got to get to the long ball line, which a lot of teams do that, but a lot of teams aren't equipped to do that. I watched the Charlotte Chicago game a couple of nights ago, 97 threes between the two of those teams. And I've seen Chicago shoot the long ball at a good rate once. I mean, I saw them blow out the Milwaukee Bucks earlier in the season, but I mean, I don't think that they're good enough to shoot the long ball at that rate every night. No, I don't think Charlotte is good enough to shoot the long ball at that rate every night. No, they're not. And that wasn't just a cold night for them. That's just who I think that there has to be some sort of in between. On top of that, this is what you guys told. I don't mean you specifically, but this is what y'all told me. I need to get with the times. So I did. I got with the times. And I'm recognizing that this is basketball. This is what the NBA has become. It's a long ball shooting, jump shooting league, and you're turning down layups to shoot at the long ball line, right? To shoot at the long ball line, and that's going on now. So I got to get with the times.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely frustrating when you're like, especially like with Tatum when he's passing those layups for threes. But I mean, if if that wasn't like a good way to play, then somebody else would win. Like last year, the Nuggets had a chance to get to the finals and win, but they didn't win. So I don't agree with people criticizing like a team that shoots a lot of threes because if that's how you want to play, then that's how you want to play.
Right.
But yeah, I just don't agree with it.
I get it. All right, brother. Good to talk to you.
All right, man, you have a good one.
Yes, sir. So there is no fake love when there was no initial love. I mean, I could recognize that a player is a good player, and it's not it's not fake. So like this dude Kivo, he says this dude Kivo, who's a Bucks fan, and Bucks fans, I don't think Bucks fans are as bad as they're not as bad as Warriors fans, but Kivo says that you previously said JT was more valuable to their team than Giannis, and that Tim Duncan a better perimeter defender than him. So I did say that. Yes, I don't think you've ever seen Tim Duncan defend on the perimeter. Tim Duncan is a damn good perimeter defender. He's a great recovery defender. So, and on top of that, I could recognize that a player is a great player. Right? I could recognize a player is a great player, but recognize his deficiencies too. That's not fake love. I'm not sitting up here. I'm not sitting up here talking about Giannis in a light that's unrealistic. He's the second best player in the world. How else am I supposed to talk about him? Do you want so let me ask you this question. Do you want me to stay on the side of F Giannis? Do you want me to do that? Because I unfortunately I could do that, but that would be fake. If I was like F Giannis, well, that's fake. And the reason why is because I think Giannis is awesome. But I do think that he's got a lot of flaws in his game. And I can't just talk about the bad stuff in his game. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are fool's gold. I do, off the strength that your defense on the perimeter is whack. I think your defense on the perimeter is whack. And I think that that's the difference between y'all winning and losing the NBA championship. I think the effort is improved. I think the communication has gotten better. But ultimately, I think your defense on the perimeter is whack as hell. So if you're asking me why Joker is better than Giannis, I think that I'm not going to say it's miles, but I think that Joker is clearly better than him off the strength of how he involves his guys in the offense, how he's able to create his own offense, how he doesn't rely on anybody to create offense for him, how he's more dimensional. He's a lot more multidimensional than Giannis is. I think he's a better rebounder than Giannis. I think he controls the pace of the game. more than Giannis. He can play slow. He can play fast. He can get on the glass and create a fast-paced game. He can stretch the defense. I think he's a much better passer than Giannis. I think that you can create a lot more offense playing with Joker than you can Giannis. I just think he's better than – I think he's a better overall basketball player than Giannis is. So I hope that answers your question. I wanted to talk about I wanted to talk about how in the NBA, because I actually had this conversation. I had this conversation earlier about I had this conversation earlier about, can you be a top 10 player all time and not be the best player in the league? If you were never the best player in the league, could you be a top 10 player all time? And the more conversation that I have about it, the more subjective I realize that it is. I mean, I originally posed the question with, can you be that? But then I'm thinking to myself, well, who determines what's definitive? You determine what's definitive. Because, I mean, I feel like in my top 10, James, Jordan, Jabbar, Chamberlain, Russell, Magic, Bird, Duncan, Olajuwon, Diesel. I felt like all 10 of those guys at one point were definitely the best player in the game. At one point in their career, at least for 1 year, they were definitely the best player in the game. And my criteria, winning matters, what you produce, how you produce it, who you produce it against, how long. So when I watched Tim Duncan win the league MVP in back-to-back seasons, right? When I watched Tim Duncan win the league MVP in back-to-back seasons, and then I watch him in the 2002-2003 season drop the three-time defending champs. And in the process of him dropping the three-time defending champs, he's got a second year. He's got a third year Tony Parker. He's got a rook in Manu Ginobili. He's got a journeyman in Steven Jackson. He's got a washed-up David Robinson. Kevin Willis wasn't even in the rotation. Steve Kerr was about to retire. With that team and what he did with them to get them to the NBA championship, with Malik Rose and Bruce Bowen, he had a band of players who weren't stars but were really good at their job, and he was the star. And for him to do what he did in those 3 years, I feel like that definitively made him the best player in the game. I don't think that in any walk of life, I don't think that we have a player who from 2000 in a 5-year span, in a 4-year span, in a 5-year span, win the NBA championship twice, win the league MVP twice in a row, by the way, win the NBA championship twice, win the league MVP twice, and is a first-team All-NBA performer and a first-team All-League defender. How I couldn't say, I can't speak for you, but how I couldn't say that's the best player in the game. How can I not say that? How is it possible for me to not say that? Now, there were players in the league, I feel like there were players in the league who were definitively the best player in the game, but there were players who were better at that point. So Kivo, for example, says, so Moses Malone. I think Moses Malone was the best player in the league in '83. I do. As good as Jabbar was, and Jabbar was still at the top of the league. As good as Bird was becoming, Bird wasn't there yet. Bird was only in year 4 in '83. I think he was in year 4. Same thing with Magic. Doc was on the other side of who he used to be. George Gervin was also not over, but he was on the other side of who he used to be. So there are players who were the best player in the game, but I just feel like there were players who were better. And those 10 players that I mentioned, James, Jordan, Jabbar, Chamberlain, Russell, Magic, Bird, Duncan, Olajuwon, Diesel, I think they were all better than Moses Malone. All of them. That doesn't mean that Moses Malone wasn't the best player in the game, and that's not indicative of Moses. That's not indicative of Moses being a top 10 player, because there are guys in the league at that point who I feel like there are guys in the league at that point, or there are guys who I felt like were better. So when I think about how good, Chamberlain, I think Chamberlain was the best player in the league for a stretch from 60, I want to say 65 to 67. I think Chamberlain was the best player in the league. I think Bill Russell was the best player in the league from, I'll say 61 to 64. As good as Chamberlain was, I think that I think that Russell was definitively the best player in the game, definitively, for 3 years. I think James was the best player in the game in 2012, 2013. I personally think he was the best player in the game for the entire decade. From 2010, 11, all the way to 2019, I think James was the best player in the NBA. And I think he was definitely the best player from 2013 on. I think Magic was the best player in the game in 87. I think Bird was the best player in the game in 85 and in 86. I don't think Bird was the best player in the game in 84. I think Jabbar was still the best player. I think Duncan was the best player in the game in 2003. I also think he was the best player in the game in 2005. And at the end of the 2005, at the end of the 2004, 2005 season, and going into the 05, 06 season, I think Duncan was the best player in the game. I think Olajuwon was the best player in the game from 94 to 96. And I think Shaq was the best player in the game in 2000, from 2000 to 2000, from 2000 to 2000, probably 2. Shaq was the best player in the game. So when I think about definitively, these are the guys that I have in my top 10 to support my claim of can you be a top 10 player in the league? And at any point, are you the best player in the game? At any point. And I think that's where the divide is with me when it comes to guys like Steph Curry, and guys like Bryant, because I think Bryant was the best player in the game in the 2009-2010 season, even though I thought I felt like James was better. But if I'm being consistent with my logic, with what Tim Duncan did, that's exactly what Bryant did. Except take out the league MVP and put in 2 finals MVPs in 3 years. That's the best player in the game right there. I can't deny that. I can't. There's no way to deny that. None whatsoever. And I won't try to. I won't try to. So when I think about guys like Steph Curry, was Steph Curry ever the best player definitively in the league? Like in 2015, in the beginning of the 2014-2015 season, there were plenty of people out there who thought KD was better than him. I'm not one of those people off the strip that I feel like KD needed Curry more than Curry needed KD. That's why I think Curry was better than him. I think he did more, and I think KD needed him more than he needed KD. In 2014, I still think James was the best player in the game, even though KD won the league MVP. In 2015, the tide started to shift to Curry, but it wasn't definitive. Curry wins the league MVP in back-to-back seasons, and people are convinced that Curry's the best player in the game. James shuts that down in 2016. In 2017, a lot of you are convinced that KD is better than Curry. So I don't think that there was ever a time. I don't think that there was ever a time that he was the best player in the game definitively, ever. And because of that, I have a difficult time with the logic that a guy can be one of the 10 best players all time when at no point in your career were you ever definitively the best player in the game, ever. So I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of stuff about the top 10. I like to stay current more than anything. when it comes to the NBA off the strength that, you know, the top 10 is good stuff, right? I feel like the top 10 is good stuff, and it's eye grabbing and it's eye popping, and people care about that sort of stuff. But I want to stay up. I want to stay up to date, and I want to stay with the times. And I can't do that if I'm consistently talking about James and Jordan. I feel like that's an argument that's been beat to death. I feel like that's a topic that people consistently harp on, and it's not something that I really want to discuss more than I want to discuss what's going on in the game today. Going into the 2014-2015 season, and I clearly have to get to this. So Kibo says, not that year. He wasn't year after and before, sure, but not that year. It was Curry. So going into the 14-15 season, in your estimation, Kibo, who was the best player in the game? In your estimation, Kibo, going into the 14-15 season, it's October 2014. Who is the best player coming into that season? In your estimation, that's what I'd like to know from you. In your estimation, who was the best player in the league coming into the 2014-2015 season? I'm listening. Because I think it was James. And I think that even though he wasn't great that year in terms of the regular season, what he did in those playoffs and getting that team to the NBA championship and how he played in the NBA championship, it was pretty incredible. I have a really difficult time with fans that, you know, don't back up statements that they have. You know, like Kibo says that Curry was better than Braun in the regular season, and he was better than him in the play. Was Curry better than James in the playoffs? Somebody straighten me out here. In the 2015 playoffs, I'm all ears to hear this from you guys, and we're gonna wrap the show up with this. Was Curry better than LeBron James in the 2015 playoffs? In your estimation, when you watched the 2014-2015 playoffs, did you think at the end of that Steph Curry was better than James in those playoffs? I ain't even talking about him head-to-head in the finals, because I think James outplayed him in the finals. I ain't even talking about that. I think James is the best player in that series. In the playoffs, is there anybody here with legit logic that Curry was better than James in the playoffs in 2015? And if he was better than him, on what level was he better? On what level was he better than him? What did he do that James didn't do? I'm trying to make sense of that. Throughout that entire playoffs, Steph Curry was better than LeBron James in 2015. With James sweeping that 60-win Atlanta team, swept them, because the regular season, I do remember the regular season. He had a back issue. He ended up taking some time off, then came back, and they got it back together. He took that team with Kevin Love, who had been to the playoffs these many times. He had took that team with Kyrie Irving, who had been to the playoffs these many times, and they weren't even on the crew, right? They weren't even on the crew. Took that team to the playoffs and took that team to the NBA Finals. Now the reason why you want to talk about efficiency, because that efficiency helps your argument. But talk about these guys and what they did. Curry is a shooter, so of course he's going to shoot the ball better than James. I won't argue that. He shot the three ball better than James. But if you're going to tell me that Steph Curry was better than James in every other aspect, because that's all you just brought up. James shot 41% in 22. That's all you just brought up. That's it. That's not enough for me, sir. No, absolutely not. Is that enough for me? So I do have to bounce, though, unfortunately. I got to bounce, and I will be back, and I will see you guys soon. So you know where to find me if I'm not here. On the panel from 11 to 2, Monday to Friday. If I'm not there, you can find me on TikTok, 9 a.m. If I'm not there, me and my man Tony Tone, we do Fluent and Chill. We're not doing it tomorrow night, but we're going to do it Thursday. We're going to move the show to Thursday this week because of the in-season tournament championship game, which I'm doing on playback tomorrow night. But if you can't find me there on Saturday afternoon at 12 o'clock, me and my man Big Ox, we do it on the Players Choice Network. So I'm not hard to find, guys. I will see you soon. But until then, put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother. Well, last time you talk to your mother. Call your mother. I will talk to you guys soon. But until then, take it light. Take it. Absolutely, man. It was good to see you guys tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. If you follow basketball, you know Chilltown Hoops.
So this is really good right here.